I'm Kat.
I'm Hayley.
And this is Night Classy, the podcast where tipsy teachers teach fascinating lessons. What are we drinking, Miss Madden?
Wine, obviously, Miss Barnhart. That is so weird to call you that. I don't know how I feel about it. Yeah, specifically though, Boda Box, Cabernet Sauvignon.
I know, they didn't have Nighthawk Black at Fresh Market, so we gotta make do. I know.
Fresh Market, I mean, the ambiance is nice, but
the ambiance is not nice. I hate it in there, almost worse than Kroger. And yes, we're back to bitching about grocery stores.
I don't know how you hate it more. The lighting is impeccable.
The lighting,
like a spa.
You're right. The lighting is nice, but it doesn't feel like you go in and there's like classical music playing. You're like, okay, where am I? It is nice that the produce isn't rotten, unlike Kroger, but the lines are longer than Kroger.
I will say I have experienced some long lines, but every time I go to Kroger, there are long lines too. I think that what is that syndrome called where you end up liking your captor?
Oh, Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like that syndrome that's called being a bitch where you hate everything. It's like, I have that.
Well, you're already diagnosed, but like, you can have more than one syndrome.
That's true. I just want a Trader Joe's. Is that too much to ask for?
We have one. It's just like 30 minutes
30
away.
fucking minutes away. That's too far. It's too
way
far.
Too far. Yeah.
You can either spend your entire paycheck on a package of cheese and a loaf of bread at Fresh Market and wait in line all day, or you can go to the hell that is Kroger.
And that is what we choose every week is Kroger. I never go to Fresh Market.
I go to Fresh Market if I need like one thing and I don't want to go to Kroger.
It's one of those things I forget it's even there.
Yeah.
Like somebody says they're going to Fresh Market and I'm like, who?
I was only in Fresh Market this week because they have these like organic peanut butter cups and they're tiny and they cost $1 per peanut butter cup. They are pretty fucking good. But it was Valentine's Day, so I went and got Alex some and then picked up a box of wine for myself while I was at it. If I'm spending $4 on 4 peanut butter cups, I'm going to buy myself a box of wine.
For like $20.
Yeah. It's my Valentine's Day too, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
well,
that's
at least
the backstory.
You got him something. I got home from work yesterday, which was Valentine's Day, and Tommy handed me this like letter that he wrote me, and he had got me flowers, and I was like, oh my God, let me go shower. And then I like wrote him a letter. I was like, it's our second year dating. I didn't know we were still doing Valentine's Day.
I was on the fence about it, and then I was like, I'm a nice girlfriend. I'll do something. I didn't do anything last year. But B, I kind of wanted to go shopping, so I went shopping.
The dopamine that I get from shopping, it makes me so happy.
I know.
And it doesn't make sense because like financial issues happen when you like shopping too much, which makes me sad. But the happiness that shopping gives me is way higher.
It's unparalleled. Like screw personal relationships. Just
screw personal finances.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Totally kidding. But yeah, I had the shopping bug this week. I'm getting my wisdom teeth out on Friday, and I was like, you know what I should have to get my wisdom teeth out? A new outfit. So I got a new outfit, and I'm like not letting myself wear it because I'm saving it for when I get my wisdom teeth out. It's my surgery outfit.
Yeah. What color is it?
It's so pretty. It's a matching sweatsuit from Target, but it's like from their like nice line. Like it kind of feels like the Lululemon like scuba sweatsuit material, and it is. It's a zip up, and then the pants are kind of like joggers, and it's like that like 90s like kind of like pea green, but it's also a little bit acid wash, like just not really acid wash, but like kind of distressed. I don't know. It's really pretty. I haven't tried it on, so I might just look like a string bean. It might not be cute on, but I was really excited about it.
I'm sure it'll make your eyes pop. Target has this power over me, this ability to make me think that I am going to work out. Their workout clothes are so cute that I am going to lounge and not just wear sweatpants around the house, because they have everything they have is so cute.
I almost bought it took a lot of restraint not to buy several sets because their sweatsuit sets, they have like a purple leopard print one. I was like, ooh,
yeah,
I need that.
Yeah.
But I told myself, I was like, Kat, you just paid for your surgery. So you get to choose one sweatsuit. And I managed.
Oh my gosh. Please ask them if you can keep the teeth. I think you have to.
I will. I was bored today, so I was on Reddit and I was like looking up because people always post on Reddit. They're like, I'm getting my wisdom teeth out tomorrow. Tell me your stories. And a bunch of people were saying that like as soon as they woke up, they like on drugs asked for their teeth and they were given their teeth. So I am going to. Did you ask for yours?
No, I didn't think of it then, but I've seen people like on like Vine have their teeth and they were still all bloody. They just like put them in a bag. Yeah. So be like, if they say yes, which they probably will, they're your fucking teeth.
I imagine so.
Ask them to clean them off too.
I'm fine with the blood. I can clean them off myself. I mean, there's going to be blood oozing around my mouth anyway. I may as well be on my teeth.
That's true. Now, and you need to look up some cool things. I'm sure there's like some witchy stuff you could do with your teeth.
I can make a voodoo doll of myself.
Yeah.
And give it to Alec. It'll be kinky. Just kidding.
You should pull out one of Alec's teeth and then like maybe grind them up together. Get a little like mortar and pestle. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a spell. Dicey, slide into our DMs. Let me know.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, blow them into someone's eyes or something. That's like the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Listen, endless possibilities.
So many possibilities. I need a mind control on myself to erase the memory of this week from my mind.
Why?
My students officially found this podcast and have been talking to me about it all week. Hello. Like, shout out to my children.
All
of them. No, all of them. They found... because I went live on TikTok, and since I'm so famous on TikTok, just kidding, no, I'm not. But one of them, like my live just popped up, or Night Classy's live popped up on their thing, and so it got sent around. And of course, since they're Gen Z, they don't listen to podcasts, so they found the TikTok and then the YouTube channel. And like honestly, what hurts the most is that we have like 6 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and I'm like, no, you guys, I swear I'm more popular than this. Just kidding, but like it's like, you know,
it looks different to them because I know the people who are watching us, like most people just listen to the podcast as a podcast, but the people who are watching us are like, I know Dr. Dicey watches us on YouTube sometimes, and then like family members, I think is the main.
And children now. So that's great. I feel kind of bad because a lot of them were really sweet about it and excited, but I'm like, I just had to be stern. I'm just like, you can't talk to me about this at school. It's not a school appropriate podcast, so I'm not going to engage. And they've all been really sweet and respectful. So like, I'm thankful for that. And once I tell them not to talk to me about it, they don't. And obviously, like, I don't want to get in trouble for promoting a podcast at school. I would never do that.
Yeah, your kids are going to be like, can I get a discount on one of those Hose for Science shirts?
Yeah, God, if I would literally die. Anytime we get an order like from in Memphis, I'm like, oh no.
Can you imagine? They walk in, take their sweatshirt off, and it's one of your podcast shirts that says Hose for Science.
I would dress code them. You're like, you're dress coded.
They'd be like,
go home.
They can freaking blackmail you now.
No, they can't. They'd have to listen to a lot of content to find anything to blackmail me for. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think they just think it's funny I have a TikTok.
Yeah. And that you didn't tell them or like ever mention it.
The whole thing was, Miss Bernhardt, why didn't you tell us you have 10,000 followers on TikTok? Because I didn't want you to know, obviously. Get out of my face.
I don't share my whole life with you guys.
Yeah. They think I live at school. They have no, like, I told them the other day, we were talking about what we're doing this, like on a weekend. And I said something about like my boyfriend, and it was like, they were scandalized that I have a boyfriend.
Yeah. Teachers are supposed to have husbands or wives and nothing else.
No. No.
You can't date as a teacher. You surely can't drink. You basically can't be a person.
Yeah.
You just have to be a teacher in the minds of parents and students and even admin, it feels like sometimes.
Definitely. But I mean, now they can learn all kinds of things about me.
Now it's out
great.
there.
Now it's all out there. Cool.
Cool. I'm somehow shocked that it took this long, but also surprised that it like finally happened.
And I'm shocked because I'm shocked that it came like spontaneously and not from one of them Googling my name. Because if you Google my name, the
It's
first
right
3
there.
pages are night classy.
Yeah.
And then you get to
Famous.
my track statistics from high school, which is embarrassing in its own way.
Oh, Google's just all embarrassment.
It really is. Never Google yourself.
Okay.
All right, we ready?
What else? Yeah, I don't have anything
I don't
else.
think I have anything. We breathalyzed. I blew 0.016.
I blew 0.011.
So I'm first.
I get to sit back and relax.
Let me just take a sip of water because I have a lot of notes.
You
Here we go.
You little thirsty podcaster.
Little thirsty girl. All right. My students, if they're listening, would think that was very
They're
funny.
like, oh!
Anyway. All right. So the Super Bowl happened on Sunday. I did not watch. But what I did do is look up the halftime show on YouTube because that's the only redeeming part of the Super Bowl.
Oh, yes.
And watching that, it was iconic and amazing. And I think that we all need a refresher course on 90s hip hop, specifically the East Coast, West Coast rap rivalry, hip hop rivalry of the 90s.
Okay,
I screwed up that title. Anyway, disclaimer, I know if you look at me, you'll think, wow, that girl must be an expert on hip hop. She must know everything about it. Surprise, I'm not. I know that's shocking to all of you.
Until now.
Until I spent my entire day researching this. Also, this topic is way bigger than I realized when I started this research. It's huge. It could definitely be its own podcast series. I'm sure there are podcasts dedicated to this because there's so much to it. But this is the Spark Notes. So if you're like me, someone who's not an expert and just wants
Oh my God,
the nitty gritty, I got you.
Love Spark Notes. That's like how I got through lit in high school. Spark Notes for life.
Oh, girl, I was such a sucker. I was such a nerd. I'd read the whole book and annotate it, and I was like scared to use Spark Notes.
The thing about me is that when I don't procrastinate and actually plan out my time well, I like reading. I like doing the assignments and all of that stuff. But I'm just such a procrastinator to my core that Spark Notes was my main bitch.
Man, I wish that could be me. And I feel like in my adulthood, it's kind of me now, but it wasn't when I was a child. I had a lot of anxiety.
Or devolve.
I was like, surely if I read the Spark Notes, my teacher will know and I'll get an F and it'll ruin my whole life.
Oh, they know for sure sometimes.
Maybe, but like also not really.
There was one teacher I had who would ask the questions specifically that were not covered in Spark Notes. Like she would take her time.
That's doing too much, in my opinion.
Way too much. I think she just didn't have a lot going on outside of school. Like school was life for her.
Couldn't be me. Anyway, here we go. Hip hop is considered to have started in 1973 in the Bronx neighborhood of New York City. The person credited as, quote unquote, the father of hip hop is Jamaican-born Clive Campbell, otherwise known as DJ Kool Herc. And as a teen, Campbell would spin records at parties. It was kind of his side gig. And doing this, he observed that people danced the most at the rhythmic parts of the song. They would like save their best dance moves for typically like the breaks in the lyrics and the breaks in the instrumentals when the drum would just be like having its moment, having a beat. This inspired him to invent a new technique called the merry-go-round. And what he would do was he would have 2 separate turntables with the same record on them. And it was typical to have 2 different turntables and you'd swap records, like have different records on them so you could like transition seamlessly between songs, but he had the same 2 records on them. And what this allowed him to do was extend those drum beats. So like the drum beat would end on one record and then he'd start it on the other so that people would dance longer.
Oh my God. That is blowing my mind right now how technology has just skyrocketed from them. It's like, oh, you want more of this part of the song? Press the rewind 15 seconds button these days now. Imagine being the guy who started that.
So smart, A. And B, when I see DJs now, I'm like, okay, they put together a playlist, like big fucking deal. But back when they like had literal turntables, like they were seriously doing They're creative masterpieces and working, which I guess I never really thought about. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I was like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
This method today is called a beat break, and it inspired a grassroots musical movement that laid the foundations for hip hop. This was an underground movement which typically centered around house parties and neighborhood block parties and became a powerful tool of protest and expression for Black and Latin youth in the South Bronx. Hip hop combined this rhythm-focused beat breaking and also the record scratching of DJ Kool Herc, and it introduced what did I mean to say there?
It's a mystery
mixed.
to me.
Mixed with rhythmic delivery of spoken word, aka rapping. By 1979, hip-hop was a mainstream genre and something that New Yorkers, particularly minority groups in the South Bronx, took great pride in. So it was like the soul of like inner city New York was hip-hop. We started it. No one else is doing it. And it remained that way through the early 80s until 1986. This is when Los Angeles rapper Ice-T released his song 6 in the Morning. This song is considered by many to be the first song of a new subgenre called gangster rap, which allowed the West Coast to enter the hip-hop scene. So soon after this, California rapper Eric Wright, a.k.a. Eazy-E, founded the hip-hop group NWA along with Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, MC Ren, DJ Yella, and Arabian Prince. Together, they released their first album, Straight Outta Compton, in 1988. This album... So iconic. Obviously, this album was an immediate smash hit. In many ways, it completely redefined hip-hop, and in all the ways, it placed the West Coast squarely as the dominant region of the genre. I think you can probably see the problem here. New York invented hip-hop, and now LA has completely taken it over.
Worst feeling ever.
Right.
Worst feeling ever. They were the hipsters of hip hop.
I know. It's like they got cheated on and the new girlfriend is hotter. Like that is the feeling I think is what they were going through.
Yes.
And it didn't feel good. Record labels were showing clear preference toward the West Coast rappers, and like the West Coast rap, I think, was a little like snappier. It had more commercial appeal than what was going on in New York, which is a little more gritty. And it became more popular. And to say that the New Yorkers felt disrespected is an understatement.
Yeah, it's always disappointing. This is similar, but not really. But I was thinking about how like Ed Sheeran, his singer-songwriter stuff was like so good and like meant so much to a lot of people. But now he's just putting out all this like poppy, more commercially crap that like everybody likes.
It's doing what sells. And I don't want to discount California rap because it's just as good. It's just different.
Yeah. Especially when it's something that's come out after the initial boom of this genre.
They kind of took what New York invented and added kind of like a California flair. And I feel like a lot of people resonate with that California lifestyle. So it sort of just, it became more popular. In 1991, Bronx rapper Tim Dog released his infamous song, Fuck Compton. He said, all you suckers that riff on the West Coast, I'll diss and spray your ass like a roach. So he was not happy.
Like a roach?
Like a roach.
Is that just for rhyme, or do I need to know more about cockroaches?
Well, calling someone a roach is like a big insult.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And
I'm learning.
He's saying spray, like I think as in shoot them, but also you spray roaches with bug spray. So it's a little double entendre.
I thought you said spread your ass cheeks like a roach.
No. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. That would be crazy. That's not something that I think most people engage in.
I was going to say, whoa, I've heard of spraying roaches. Trust me, I've done it plenty of times.
Spread your ass like a roach.
What was the actual one?
Spray your ass like a roach. The song goes on to call out Eazy-E and Ice Cube by name, as well as the rest of NWA. And in the music video, also every time NWA is in my notes, we use this program at school for standardized testing called NWEA. And so it just
close,
like they're just so close. Yeah. In the music video, Tim Dog also makes violent gestures toward Eazy-E again, Eazy-A, oh my God, Dr. Dre and DJ Quick lookalikes. This sparked numerous responses by West Coast rappers. So it's kind of,
so dramatic.
That like sparring with like diss tracks, essentially, going back and forth.
But that's really dramatic, I feel like, to get a lookalike in your music video so that you can...
Well, Eminem, do you remember the Eminem and Mariah Carey feud where they broke up and she had an Eminem lookalike in her music video of her diss track of him
too?
She put out that song. What's that song called where she makes fun of him and then had his lookalike in the video, and then he put out a diss track against her, and his diss track was like crazy.
Messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, people have done it. Seems dramatic to me.
Don't play with Eminem. That's just not smart.
Or just be nice to everyone. Don't make any diss tracks.
Stop it.
Let's make nice tracks. How about that?
What's the opposite of a diss? A compliment track. Let's make those.
A comp track, straight out of complimenting.
That would be like a funny skit.
Oh my gosh, we're
so dumb. I'm sorry, everyone.
I hate it.
People who like love hip hop hate us right now. Or
Totally.
hate me. Anyway, and I love hip hop. Like I'm trying to like show this all respect. Like I'm not trying to disrespect it with my lack of knowledge. I researched this because I wanted to learn more about it.
Yeah,
but I feel like
great.
as with anything, when you talk about something that has a really strong fandom and you're not an expert, people are not going to be happy, which I understand. If I was listening to someone like fuck something up that I cared about, I'd be upset. Anyway, but I'm going to try to do my best. Here we go.
Send all complaints to Alec.
Yeah. Not our podcast reviews. In response, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg put out a song called Fuck with Dr. Dre Day, and everybody's celebrating. And many other West Coast rappers, including Compton's Most Wanted, DJ Quick, Rodney O, and Joe Cooley, and the Tweety Bird Lock also put out diss tracks. In 1993, record producer Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, which he will now be referred to from here on out.
Puff the Magic Daddy.
Started a New York-based record label called Bad Boy Records. A year later, a new artist was signed under the Bad Boy label. That is the notorious B.I.G. And he released his debut album, Ready to Die, which included hits like Juicy and Big Papa. Biggie was an instant success, and he can be single-handedly credited with revitalizing the East Coast hip-hop scene. So Biggie rose to the top. He's the Big Papa, and he mingled with already established West Coast rapper Tupac Shakur, a relationship that would explode into one of the biggest rivalries in music history.
Oh my God. I remember as a little kid wanting my mom to play I think it must have been the song Big. I can't remember which one it is, but I was like, it's like Biggie, 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 Biggie. And she was like, oh, I know what you're talking about.
And your mom's just bumping gangster rap in her Honda.
Yeah, I remember where she had this red minivan, and she never changed her ways with almost anything after she had kids. So she was listening to Eminem really loud in the car after picking up one of my little brother's friends, and this child was a sensitive flower. And he's in the back holding his ears. He's like, can you please turn it down?
God.
And my mom's like, what?
I mean, if someone was blasting Eminem to me, I'd probably say the same thing.
Me
I'm
too.
not an Eminem fan.
And I was so like anxiety ridden, even as like an elementary school kid. I was like, no, this is terrible.
Mom, they used to play on the bus, the hip hop station, and my mom never like really listened to hip hop. She listened to a lot of like Prince and Gwen Stefani and like 80s music kind of stuff.
My mom too.
And so, but they'd play hip hop on the bus, and there were like some dirty songs on the radio, and I just like wasn't exposed to that, and I'd get really uncomfortable and like feel like, I don't know, I was like really embarrassed by sex. And so like the song like Candy Shop was really popular, and I'd get I'd just sit on the bus like, oh my God, I know what they're saying. I was like in first grade.
I can't even believe they played music for you on the bus. We never.
Our bus driver was ex-military and like super hardcore, and she would blast gangster rap.
Oh my, your bus driver was way cooler than ours. Our bus driver got in an accident one time in the neighborhood. She ran into a parked car and blamed all of the kids on the bus for talking too loud.
I would too. Like, so that's honestly fair. They probably were.
Yeah, probably. But like, it was a parked car, and this is literally your job is to drive the bus.
We went through a lot of bus drivers. There was one time, because there was 1 year of elementary school where I rarely rode the bus. I usually rode the bus, but for whatever reason, I wasn't riding the bus much. And so the bus driver would always skip my stop. And then one day I rode the bus, and I was a shy child. And so I noticed that he just like kept driving, and I didn't say anything. I just sat there like, and I was tiny because I was probably in second grade, and he finished his entire route, and I was the only one on the bus. Oh, he never dropped me off. Oh my God. And he had to drive me all the way back home.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. I can't believe that. And it reminds me of a story. Last anecdote before we move on. I think that this is how the story went. I can't exactly remember, but one of my friends, her brother fell asleep on the bus, and his mom didn't notice. Like, we all got home. None of us noticed that the little brother was not with us. God. And then mom is like, what did he? She calls the schools panicking, like, where is he? Where is he? And the bus yard calls her like, yeah, he was asleep. He's awake now.
It must happen like a decent amount, but that was one of my like formative childhood memories. I was mortified.
That would be really scary though.
Yeah. And what if my bus driver wasn't a nice person?
Yeah. They'd be like, sorry, you just have to sleep here tonight. Have fun with the raccoons.
I'll leave the key in the ignition. You can have the heat. All right. So ironically, Tupac was born in New York City, but his mom moved him to Marin City, California as a child. So he's still a West Coast rapper. From a young age, he had an interest in poetry and entered the music industry first as a roadie and then as a dancer for the group Digital Underground. In 1991, he released his debut album, Tupacalypse Now. By the time Biggie released his first album, Pac was already a platinum-selling artist, so he became kind of a mentor for Biggie. The two were at a party in Los Angeles when they first met, and at this party, I think it may have been at Tupac's house, he cooked the attendees a dinner of steaks and french fries, and then they all just kind of like ate together and hang out, and that's where him and Biggie sort of became friends. The two had a really good relationship at first. They were honestly close friends. They would hang out. They would exchange gifts. They would crash at each other's places when they were in town. They performed a freestyle together at the 1993 Superfest at Madison Square Garden. And at one point, Biggie even asked Pac to be his manager. Dang. Tupac declined that. He just kind of wanted to keep friends and business separate and told him that he should just stay with Puff Daddy because he'll be good for him. So like there wasn't any negativity there. It was just, let's do what's best for you.
But did they have a podcast together?
Honestly, they should have.
They probably would have.
I don't know. Things went downhill pretty quickly. So they were friends, but there's still that like underlying tension of them representing separate coasts. Because even though now like Biggie has kind of elevated the East Coast, like there's still like a lot of hard feelings there. But they're still friends until November 30th of 1994. That day, the two were supposed to work on a project together for Little Sean at Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan. Biggie and Puff Daddy were already there. They were waiting upstairs when Tupac arrived. And as he entered the lobby, Tupac was robbed at gunpoint and then shot 5 times. Tupac survived the attack, but made it very well known that he believed it was an inside job orchestrated by Biggie and Puff. According to him, they quote unquote looked guilty. So I don't know what that means. The robbers were never caught, so we can't say for sure that Biggie wasn't behind it. But like it also seems like a stretch because they weren't beefing at the time. There wasn't really any, like they were working together. It didn't seem like any reason.
Why would they do that?
Like people have reasons to think that, but I think the general consensus is that Tupac was just getting really paranoid. I mean, the 90s rap scene was pretty dangerous and violent, and so I think it was just kind of like he trusted nobody, and it was a really random event. Like it's weird, definitely weird that he randomly got robbed.
Yeah.
Suspicious for sure. But there's nothing really to suggest that Biggie and Puff would have orchestrated it.
Yeah. And to get shot 5 times is a lot.
A lot, yeah.
It seems like that's something you do if you want them dead.
Right. Like more than just a robbery.
Yeah.
For sure. So it is weird. It's definitely weird. Either way, these accusations against Biggie irreparably damaged their relationship, as it would, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think I'd be out on that one. I'd be like, give me your wisdom teeth. Why? So I can create a voodoo doll.
Don't worry about it.
The last interaction. Oh, no reason.
No reason.
Just witchcraft.
What really didn't help with their relationship and with Tupac thinking Biggie did it is right after the shooting, Biggie released his song, Who Shot Ya? Not a good look. Biggie and Puff Daddy insist that the song was recorded before the shooting and it had nothing to do with it. However,
but like maybe don't.
Right, maybe wait. It's kind of like announcing your pregnancy at someone's wedding. It's like, sure, you were already pregnant, but maybe just like wait a little bit to say something.
You were already pregnant and you're gonna be pregnant.
Yeah.
Like
you can release this
next
later. Yeah. Not right now. Understandably, Tupac and the rest of the hip hop community took this as a personal taunt against him because, you know, the burglars weren't caught. In response, Tupac released the song Hit 'Em Up, in which he claimed to have slept with Biggie's wife, Faith Evans. She, of course, denies this. And actually, according to her, what really happened was that I think she appeared in one of Biggie's songs or music videos. I didn't put this in my notes, so take this with a grain of salt. And she was supposed to be paid, I think, $250,000. And he told her, I'm not giving you this money unless you sleep with me, which it's her word against his. I don't know what happened. I didn't do a ton of research on this. I'm just reporting what happened according to what was said.
Just a reporter.
And she said, like, I don't do business that way. I'm not going to do it. So she denied sleeping with him. He says they slept together in his song, which of course made Biggie very angry, understandably, again.
Yeah, I feel like at that point you can just say anything that you want to in that song if you feel like that's going to get the reaction that you want.
Yeah.
In this tiff.
And I mean, it's a diss track. Like, most of the things in diss tracks are not truthful. Like, it's meant to get the other person riled up. Not that makes claiming something like that okay. It's just probably not true. So this incident, again, brought up a lot of hard feelings between the East and West Coast, and things were now also heating up between Puff's Bad Boy Records and Dr. Dre and Suge Knight's West Coast label, Death Row Records. So these two record labels kind of come up to the forefront of this West Coast, East Coast rivalry. At the 1995 Source Awards, which were held in New York City, Suge Knight took a dig at Bad Boy Records while announcing the assembly of artists and industry figures. On stage, he said, quote, "Any artist out there that wants to be an artist and stay a star and not have to worry about the executive producer trying to be in all the videos, on all the records, dancing, come to Death Row." This was a direct call out to Puff Daddy's habit of appearing in his artist videos and rapping on their songs.
Yeah, it makes me think of like DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me scream my name at the beginning of this song.
Right. It's a lot like that. So it was meant, I think, to be a joke, but not in the best
Bit of
taste.
truth and some jokes and
Definitely a little bit of truth. And he said this in New York, so it didn't go over well with the crowd. They erupted in boos. And kind of, I think this statement was taken as a dig against the East Coast in general, not just against Bad Boy.
Yeah. Was there ever any kerfuffles with people just like your average citizen over this East Coast, West Coast?
I assume so. You'd probably have to go digging for it because Tupac and Biggie take up like all of everything in most sources. So I didn't see a ton, but I know there are documentaries about this where it probably does get into it. I haven't had time to watch them yet.
That'd be so interesting, that loyalty to this thing that just seems so big.
Yeah.
You know?
And it makes a lot of sense because I mean, it's gangster rap, so it's about gang culture. And so you have like your West Coast gang versus your East Coast gang. It makes like, it totally makes sense why this happened.
Yeah, it does.
Later that year in December, the Dog Pound, which is a death row group, was in Brooklyn recording a music video for their single New York, New York. Biggie decided to start some drama and called Hot 97, which is the local hip hop station, and told them exactly where the Dog Pound was shooting. Followed by a call to action, he said, "Brooklyn, stand up." So he's like, this is the address, Brooklyn, stand up.
Oh, no.
The Dog Pound was listening at the time, and this is so sad. They were really excited. They thought that Biggie was supporting them and telling fans to go cheer them on.
Oh, honey.
I know.
Honey, no.
Honey, no. This is not what was happening.
Oh, God.
And this part's not funny. Instead, shortly after the call, shots were fired at the Dog Pound's trailer.
Oh, my God.
At the video set. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the gunman was not identified.
That's excessive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In response to this, a scene was added to that music video that showed a giant Snoop Dogg destroying New York buildings like he is Godzilla. So they got their revenge.
Okay. All right.
And then, not to be outdone, in response to that, a group of East Coast rappers released a diss track called LA. Backing it up for just a second, before all of this went down, shortly after the first time Tupac was shot, he was sentenced and incarcerated for 5 counts of sexual abuse. And I really wanted to get into the sexual abuse case, but as I started doing research on it, I realized it's very, very convoluted and we just don't have time. What I want you guys to know is just that it's controversial and there are theories, and I want to emphasize the word theories, that Tupac was framed for this by Bad Boy Records, possibly as revenge for implicating Puff and Biggie for his shooting. So there's a lot of different theories about this case. The main takeaway is he was incarcerated, and during the time he was incarcerated, Suge Knight offered Tupac a deal. Death Row Records would pay his $1.4 million bail, and in exchange, Tupac would sign with them. Tupac was like, fucking sweet. Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he accepted, and on October of 1995 was released from jail. I think he was only in for a few months. This, of course, worsened the feud between Bad Boy and Death Row because now it was also about Biggie and Tupac, and they're just like two teams now. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac attended a Mike Tyson boxing match with Suge Knight at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. After the event, at around 11 p.m., the two were pulled over by police officers for playing their stereo too loud and not having license plates. They were like, we do have license plates. They're right here. They were in the back of the trunk. And the police were like, okay, cool. You guys can go. Shortly after, two women pulled up alongside their car and said, come with us to Club 662. And they were like, sweet, let's go there. While on their way to the club, though, a white Cadillac pulled up next to the passenger side window where Tupac was sitting. The person in the backseat of the Cadillac rolled their window down and rapidly fired at the car with a Glock 22. Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. One of the bullets in his chest ended up going through his lung. Knight was not shot, but he was hit in the head by fragmentation. Shakur and Knight were taken to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada, where Tupac was put on life support and had to be also put in a medically induced coma because he kept trying to get out of bed. He was scared that whoever did it would come back for him.
Finish.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
that's awful.
Super awful. Knight was released the next day, but refused to cooperate with the police investigation, along with the rest of Tupac's entourage. Everyone just didn't want to talk to the cops, and I really don't blame them. If it were gang-related, like, talking to the cops could mean they come back for you.
Yeah.
And also, as we'll get into in just a minute, the LAPD was super corrupt at the time, and so, like, you didn't talk to them, which... completely understandable.
Not want to get involved.
Yeah. Tupac remained in critical care for 6 days until September 13th, when he died of respiratory failure that led to cardiac arrest. So there were not many leads. Very few people were willing to cooperate with the police, and the investigation hit a wall. Another contributing factor to this is that police, I know you're shocked, allegedly mismanaged the case by discounting certain evidence, failing to protect witnesses, and follow up with certain leads. So, yeah, I'm sure no one's surprised.
It's so crazy
Yeah.
when they're like, oh yeah, we found the fingerprints on the gun discarded, but we didn't think it was relevant. I'm not saying that that's what happened in this case, but it's like you hear things like that where
Pretty
it's
much. And I didn't get, like, again, the murder of Tupac could be its own lesson, and it would still probably could easily be a 3-parter. Like, there's so much information, and so, like, I didn't get to go as deeply into it as I would have liked, but some of this stuff was crazy. Like, they had an eyewitness who said, I can identify the shooter, and then the police didn't protect them and he was killed. So, like, they just didn't do their job.
It's almost like they don't care.
Right. Crazy.
It's weird.
It's so weird. Not weird at all. Yeah. So that it just all sucked, and we'll probably never know what happened and who killed Tupac. The dominant theory is that it was a member of the Compton gang, the Southside Crips. So earlier that day, Tupac and his entourage beat up a Crip, and so they think that maybe that put a target on their back. It was kind of weird. Like, I couldn't really understand why they did it. I think that Crip was, like, stealing from a store, and Tupac and his entourage happened to be there, and they're like, that's a fucking Crip, and he's stealing, like, let's beat him up. I'm not sure. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Again, it's not in my notes, so I could be totally off base, but that was my interpretation. Whatever happened, that's what most people think occurred. But, of course, people also pointed their finger at Biggie, who, of course, denied any involvement. He definitely didn't do it himself if he was involved. He was in New York that night recording a song. But sadly, 6 months later, Biggie would meet the same fate as Tupac. And again, really sad, Tupac was only 26 at the time of his death, and Biggie would only be 24.
Oh, my God.
I didn't realize they died so young.
Yeah, I didn't either.
It's amazing the impact they had.
Truly,
such a short life.
So glad you're doing this lesson. You don't realize how much you don't know
Right.
about things that are so mainstream.
I know.
now.
You're like, oh yeah, I know, like, that Tupac and Biggie got murdered and had beef or whatever, but, like, I didn't know any of the details.
Yeah.
Yeah. In February of 1997, Biggie went to LA to promote his new album, Life After Death, and film a music video for his song, Hypnotize. In a radio interview, he stated he would be hiring extra security for the trip, partly because of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry and Tupac's recent shooting. On March 7th, he presented an award at the 1997 Soul Train Music Awards in LA and was booed by the audience because he's East Coast and it was LA. Then on March 8th, he attended, and also because people were blaming him for Pac's death. Then on March 8th, he attended an after party for this event. The party got shut down early by the fire department because of overcrowding, smoking, and loud music, which I didn't realize that celebrity parties got shut down. But
yeah,
okay.
I thought you just
thought you
pull up
could
and be
just do that.
Oh, this is Beyonce's house.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I think it was like a party for like Vice Records or something. It was like a big party, obviously. So I was surprised that they shut it down. But anyway, this happened at 12:30. So at 12:30, it was like when a party in college gets busted. Like everyone's pouring out, getting into their cars. It's a lot of chaos.
Yeah, it is. Not that I know.
Not that I would have any experience with that.
Nope.
So they're leaving the party in all this chaos. Biggie's in his car and he stops at a stoplight when a Chevy Impala pulls up next to him. The driver rolls down their window and opens fire at Biggie. Like Tupac, he was also hit 4 times and pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. Immediately, people began connecting the death to Tupac's. It just seems uncanny. FBI agent Phil Carson claims to know what happened that night. He believes that the shooter was Amir Muhammad, a known hitman who was identified as the shooter by several witnesses and owns a 1995 Black Impala with chrome wheels, the exact car Biggie was shot from.
Definitely suspicious.
So it's like open and shut case, right? Like we have eyewitnesses. This guy has the same car, but he is the godparent of corrupt LAPD officer David Mack's children. So he has connections to the police.
Dang.
Uh-huh. And Mack is like a really bad guy. He was one of the main guys implicated in the rampant corruption scandal. And I didn't know what this was. So I just went on Wikipedia real quick. And apparently in LA in the 90s, there were 70 LAPD officers, actually more than 70, who were part of the crash unit. And the crash unit, and I don't even want to repeat this, but I'm going to read what it stands for. It stands for Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums.
Oh my
God. So it's these cops who are quote unquote fighting street crime, but they ended up being engaged in misconduct and like it was like this huge scandal. So some of the things they were doing were unprovoked shootings and beatings, planting false evidence, stealing. They were dealing narcotics that they like confiscated from people. They were robbing banks, police officers robbing banks. They were doing perjury and covering up evidence. And so it's like really like who's the fucking street hoodlums now? Like it's the LAPD.
Yeah.
And so
I'm sorry, go ahead.
this is all to say that one of the main guys who was leading this essentially police gang had a connection, like he was basically family with the guy that supposedly killed Biggie.
Yeah, so they would have no qualms about doing either of those shootings.
No, and they covered it up.
Yeah, yeah.
We technically don't know who killed Biggie because it was never solved. Suge Knight had connections to some of these cops, and actually he would hire these corrupt cops as bodyguards for his events.
Yeah, because they're willing to go balls to the wall.
Yeah, they're not. They do illegal shit and have all the protections of police officers. So like he's hiring them to do illegal shit. And then Biggie gets killed by a hitman who has connections to the main guy. So strange. Very curious.
Yeah, it's weird how all these stars all align and form a constellation.
Yeah.
An ugly, corrupt constellation.
Very ugly and corrupt. And like this is only one theory. There's hundreds of them.
Yeah.
This is the one that seemed to connect the most dots to me. And I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but, you know, the theory is that Suge, who was in prison at the time, orchestrated this, hired the hitman with the help of Mac and to take out Biggie because he thought Biggie killed Pac. That's what people think. And it makes sense. Like, even if it's not what happened, it is a good theory, I think. But I mean, the real tragedy, sadly, Biggie Smalls' murder remains unsolved, and Tupac and Biggie's young deaths were beyond tragic. Some in the hip hop community at the time feared that it might be the end of rap music as they know it. Like, these people were so prominent and so groundbreaking. Luckily, hip-hop continued to thrive, and the murders inspired efforts to end the violence within the genre. In February of 1997, just before Biggie's murder, Snoop Dogg and Puff Daddy held a press conference together where they called for the end of the West Coast-East Coast rap rivalry. Snoop said, he said, quote, "Kids around the world are watching. By calling for a truce, we are giving them something to live for." And so he's kind of calling on this, and Puff Daddy expressed his embarrassment for what's happening. He said that he doesn't want to be part of something as ignorant as East Coast, West Coast beef. He said, quote, "My intelligence level is too high for my mind to get into something like that. I'm from the East, or I'm from this, or I'm from that." Sounds like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. But like, the sentiment is the same. It's just like, this is stupid. Like, people are killing each other over like liking music from a different coast.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it does seem pretty dumb.
Yeah, it seems pretty dumb, but again,
But
like,
also
it makes sense why people had so much emotion wound up into this.
Yeah, it's weird how complex it is. Like, seems dumb, but it's not senseless.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the deaths are senseless, but it makes sense why you would get emotionally invested in like rap from your neighborhood when it talks about so many experiences that you've had.
Yeah, it's relatable.
Definitely. And ultimately, the feud did phase out by the end of the 90s, but you can see differences between East and West Coast hip hop even today. So, and I just kind of like wanted to list some prominent rappers like from then and now from the East Coast and from the West Coast, because when I was doing this research, like, and this is a major, major generalization, but when I'd go on message boards and subreddits, the common sentiment that I saw people expressing was that East Coast rap tends to be more poetic and have more interesting lyrics, whereas West Coast rap has a little more like curb appeal and like better beats. And I think that like stands true. So some prominent West Coast rappers include Snoop Dogg, Saweetie, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar, YG, Schoolboy Q, Eazy-E, and Ice-T. And obviously that's not even close to everyone, but I just like made a little list of people who stood out to me.
Yeah. I feel like Kendrick Lamar, I knew he was from California, but I feel like that doesn't stand true to his music. I feel like he specifically is very poetic.
Oh,
and
yeah.
would be more
and
East Coast.
I mean, there's
interesting.
definitely like overlap, but I also think that his sounds a little more like inspired by like Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, you're
than
right.
It does, but I don't know. Like, it obviously there's overlap, and like to say like East Coast has better lyrics, West Coast has better beats, like that's a massive generalization.
Totally. Yeah.
Prominent East Coast rappers include LL Cool J, Lil Kim, Ghostface Killah, J. Cole, Cardi B, 50 Cent, Nicki Minaj, Busta Rhymes, Wu-Tang Clan, and Jay-Z. And of course, like the South also now like is huge on the rap scene and produces a ton of amazing rappers, but that's not what this lesson is about. So I don't want people to think I'm like not including them,
leaving out a
huge region. But that's East Coast versus West Coast rap. That's your little Spark Notes version.
Wow.
And maybe someday I'll do a deep dive into one of the elements of this lesson, because there was so much.
Yeah, that truly was the Spark Notes. I've learned so much, but I'm leaving with even more questions.
I know, it definitely kept me wanting more. And the research took a long time to do because there was a lot to unpack and so many theories. Like Tupac and Biggie's murder could easily be their own episodes, and there's a lot there.
And that unearthed this, I don't know if it's memory or not, but I think there was some conspiracy theory about Biggie predicting his own death with that song. What was it, Life After Death?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something there too.
For sure. Yeah, there's an unlimited
so
amount
much.
of
We're starting a new
theories.
podcast, guys.
Yes. Experts of rap. Anyway, my sources are history.com, the Hip-hop. Hip-hop Wikipedia page, hiphopmusicfandom.com, the Notorious B.I.G. Wikipedia page, themusicuniverse.com, hiphopgoldenage.com, tvovermind.com, latimes.com, biography.com, East Coast, West Coast Hip Hop Rivalry Wikipedia page, amny.com, the murder of Tupac Shakur Wikipedia page, the murder of Notorious B.I.G. Wikipedia page, allthisinteresting.com, an article called Who Killed Biggie Smalls Inside the Unsolved Shooting of Brooklyn's Hip Hop King by Marco Margatoff, and the Rampart Scandal Wikipedia page. And that's my lesson.
Wow, little hoe for sources.
I know. Like I'm saying, there's a lot of info. Thank you guys. Let's hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I cannot tell you all how beneficial therapy has been for me through multiple stages and changes in my life. I've always had anxiety. I've dabbled in depression here and there, but it doesn't really matter if you have a label for this or that. Whatever you're going through, therapy has helped me every single time I've gone, and I fully believe that everyone can benefit from therapy, because without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is, though, therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself, because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to Night Classy listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/classy. That's betterhelp.com/classy. Support us by supporting the sponsors who support us. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Welcome back, everybody. Are you ready to go on a learning journey with me?
I'm so ready. Actually, I might need more wine, but I'll do that while you talk.
Pour it up. Pour it up. Here you go. Here's the box.
Thank y'all.
Let me set the scene. A really long time ago, approximately somewhere between 2 million years and 700,000 years ago. Like a really long time ago.
Gap.
Well, the thing that we're going to talk about happened before history.
Can it be
really can happen?
But okay, 2 million to 7,000 is a big difference. Or did you say 700,000?
700,000.
Oh, okay. I heard 7,000. I was like,
well,
that seems wrong.
Both are a very big range.
I mean, both may as well be the same amount of time.
As well be. We're talking evolutionary stuff here, okay? So what happened was our Homo erectus ancestors erected more than just their posture.
Oh.
They erected their brains.
Oh.
Oh, not what you were hoping for. They doubled in size, though.
Wow.
If that makes you feel any type of way. And the Homo sapiens did it again 500,000 to about 100,000 years ago, somewhere in that stretch of time, when their brain volume significantly increased. So in less than 4 million years, pretty short, talking, on the evolutionary scale, the hominid brain grew 3 times the size it had been in the previous 60 billion years. Side note, what is time. 60 million years. I think I said billion. I meant million. 60 million years. Like, what does that even mean?
It means nothing to me. And the reason I know it means nothing to me is because when you said 60 billion, I went, okay. Even though I know the earth is not that old. But it may as well be.
It might as well be. Yeah, it makes no difference. So I'm going to pull a quote here from Paul Stamets, a psilocybin mycologist, during his talk Psilocybin Mushrooms and the Mycology of Consciousness.
What?
And he said, we'll get to it.
I think it's psilocybin.
What'd I say?
No, it's psilocybin. You said psilocybin. Now it fucked me up.
Wait, it's psilocybin? Psilocybin. Okay. I swear I literally practiced this before. I was sitting at parent-teacher conferences when no one was there, and I was like, psilocybin. And, you know, I do what I do.
Listen,
but anyway, this guy said, from an evolutionary point of view, this is an extraordinary expansion, and there's no explanation for the sudden increase in the human brain. Scientists have some ideas, but today we're going to learn about the one theory thought up and popularized by the ethnobotanist, mystic, and psychedelic enthusiast Terence McKenna and his ethnopharmacologist, researcher, author, lecturer, brother, Dennis McKenna.
I thought you were going to say like ethno-psychedelic botanist Joe Rogan.
Well, Joe Rogan has talked about what I'm going to talk about extensively on his podcast, but I'm also going to talk about why, spoiler alert, it's wrong. It's not right. It didn't happen.
Something Joe Rogan believes in is wrong.
I firmly believes in it. Like, he is so excited to talk about it. It seems like all the time.
Today, I went on Amazon and looked up ivermectin to read the reviews. Speaking of Joe Rogan, and it did not disappoint.
What is ivermectin?
It's the horse dewormer that people take for COVID. All the reviews were like, my rare two-legged 150-pound horse, wink, wink, like really liked this. Like, oh my fucking god.
Yeah, washes down well with bleach.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Joe Rogan really likes this theory that we're going to talk about. It was popularized by Terence McKenna. He died in 2000, but before he died, he was really into psychedelics. He was specifically interested in how psychedelics altered human consciousness, especially in high doses. No pun intended. One of my favorite quotes from my research was from this video of Terence McKenna talking. And it was him basically saying that all these people are out here taking, quote, pissant amounts of mushrooms, and they think they have all the answers to the universe. You have to take at least 5 dry grams of mushrooms on an empty stomach, or it's all a waste. And I can't actually imagine what 5 grams of dry mushrooms is. I don't even know what that means actually, like what that would feel like at all, but it seems like a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Right?
Because I think a mouse weighs like 100 grams. And so
that's like a mouse's
5
arm?
More than that, because mushrooms are light. So 5 grams of mushrooms is like probably a big handful of mushrooms.
Yeah. Dried mushrooms, 5 grams.
Listen, I don't
On
have
an empty
experience with
stomach.
psychedelics, but that sounds like a ton.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you don't even have to have experience for. I mean, first of all, if anyone ever uses the word pissant, pissant amount.
Yeah, he's that person at a party that's like, oh, that's all you're gonna take.
Yeah.
I take, and then like.
And then,
I have to watch what I say now. My students are listening.
Hold on, can we rewind that you said it's 100 grams, that's like a mouse, and then you're like, yeah, so 5 milligrams is like a mouse's arm?
Yeah,
That
the
was
weight of
just
a
a
mouse's
surreal
arm.
way of measuring. It was so
Listen,
strange.
I only
We've got
know
mice on the mind.
I only know 100 grams is a mouse because of your sister telling me that.
Oh, that makes sense. But yeah, a gram is like a paperclip.
Yeah.
Oh man! So 5 paper clips when you're talking about hallucinogens.
That's
it's
a lot.
It's a lot. So it's almost as if it's his whole life. You know, he's one of those guys. He's very, very passionate about.
Decent amount.
Also,
Also, I feel like if you take any amount of mushrooms on an empty stomach, you're just going to be vomiting, right?
I don't
That's
know.
what happens, right?
I guess so, probably.
But maybe on an empty stomach, you don't actually throw them up. You just
maybe
dry
if
heave.
it's a whole meal, if you're taking 5 grams of dried mushrooms,
I guess.
that's
And also,
your meal.
listen, I'm not in the business of telling people how to do drugs. Let's make that very clear.
I have
I don't
no
understand
idea.
drugs, and that sounds like a lot to me.
I completely agree. And when you have this very well-known psychedelic enthusiast telling you that, you know, to really get what it's worth, you have to take this much on an empty stomach. I'm like, okay, so that's intense.
You can't overdose on psychedelics, can you?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think you can overdose on mushrooms. So, like, what's stopping people from what happens if you eat 1,000 grams? Do you just pass out?
I think it just
Probably.
upsets your stomach.
Yeah.
You'd probably throw up
Yeah.
for sure.
For sure throw up.
If anything, maybe like it affects your heart rate, which could be harmful.
yeah.
But I don't know. I've never taken 1,000 grams. But Alec will tell us, I'm sure.
Yes.
But
Kill some
until
time.
then,
Kill some time.
we'll get back to this theory. So Terrence and his brother Dennis were, excuse me, oh my God, I just burped into the microphone. Cute. It was a little baby burp. So the two brothers were talking one day, and from this conversation, the quote, stoned ape theory was born. Even though neither of them ever called it stoned ape theory, someone did one time and it just stuck. I don't even know what they called it initially, but it's pretty descriptive.
It brings up a cool visual.
Yeah, it does. It's fun. It's flashy. And that's one of the reasons why it's so popular.
Like, I just think of it. Like, weed is big in Washington, so is Bigfoot. And there's so many fucking, like, T-shirts of Bigfoot smoking a joint. And that's what I picture.
Yeah, and it's actually crazy. I have a little list if this lesson didn't go as long as I wanted about like different animals getting high in different ways. And I'm like, I had no idea.
Please read it.
I will. I
don't care if we're here all night.
It's pretty good. It's pretty freaking good.
Real quick.
Especially,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, just particularly when the animals are doing it themselves. It is not cool to get animals high. Don't do that.
Thank you for that disclaimer. I didn't even realize it sounded like that.
No, I don't think it did,
Okay.
but I just wanted to be sure, like very clear that like that's a no-no.
Please don't feed your dog pot brownies.
Don't breathe into their nostrils.
No,
Don't do any of that.
Bad.
Be a good person, okay? Be a good person. Brush your teeth. Wash your face.
Don't get your dog high.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 golden rules.
Back to you, Alec.
So it's saying you can overdose on them to the point where you like have coma, seizures, psychosis, panic attacks, diarrhea, slowed perception of time, delusional thinking, these types of things. So I guess it can get pretty serious, but it's not usually fatal.
Okay. Thank you for that. So what exactly does this theory say? Essentially, it says that humans are conscious now because of our distant ancestors. They ate psychedelic mushrooms.
But other animals eat them.
Yes,
And-
that's it.
And if you
Brava.
you can't tell me a chipmunk is as smart as me.
But maybe they're on their way evolutionarily.
No.
You need to suspend your disbelief.
Listen, I raised a baby squirrel and those things are dumb as fuck.
Yes, they are. Which is one of the big sticking points is that like so many other animals get high and use hallucinogens and other drugs and drink beer and all that. And they're not on their way to becoming any type of like human horse hybrid type
It's
thing.
an enlightened muskrat. It ate a mushroom.
The muskrat just talked to me. Oh, wait, I'm the one who did mushrooms.
Now it knows aliens are real. It's crazy. And it can do physics.
So that's a really great point, Kat. But let's just suspend our disbelief for a second so we can really understand where the theory is coming from. And then we'll get to why it's completely wrong. So hundreds of thousands of years ago, as we stated, the early human brain suddenly doubled and then tripled in size. And we needed larger brains for a plethora of reasons, including our precise motor skills, memory, planning abilities, ability to track and predict animal paths, and be able to create and follow societal rules, and of course, language. Something to also keep in mind is that early humans, our very ancient, distant ancestors, had the first tools, the first hunting methods, the first organized societies before this big expansion ever even happened in our brains. According, it happened in our brains, but Terence McKenna hypothesized that the evolution of humans from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens was driven by early humans eating the mushrooms containing psilocybin. Nailed it. And therefore, it expanded their minds. He thought that as humans traveled, they, end up following herds of wild cattle whose poop then set the perfect scene for psilocybe cubensis to grow from the dung. And that is a magic mushroom, which is true that it can grow, does grow from dung. It's like the best fertilizer. So that's his hypothesis.
I love how you can just have any hypothesis you want.
You can just
and you don't
say
need
stuff.
any evidence. You can just say what you think.
I
think
it's
a hypothesis.
What makes it? Hypothesis. More like theory is what I should call it. Conspiracy.
Well, it's
theory,
a hypothesis, and then you test a hypothesis.
How is he gonna test this? The thing about this theory is that there's, spoiler alert again, no evidence to support this.
Listen, he just wants to get high and eat his 5 grams of mushrooms.
I think
and
this
he wants to
theory
justify it.
Is a result of him being high.
Probably.
So there's that. Terence also believed that low doses of mushrooms could improve visual acuity, which would be great for early hunters, meaning that it's great for evolution of the general mankind.
Have you ever met someone who's into microdosing?
No, that seems like a very Seattle thing.
I worked in the restaurant industry in Seattle, and I swear it was like a freaking cult. People got really into microdosing and would take what you would do is take a tiny bit of LSD or mushrooms, and they swear it helps your dexterity and you're more focused and all this. I'm like, no, you're just getting high.
Yeah.
And you think it's okay to drive and go to work high because it's a small amount. It's not.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. It's okay. Do you have increased visual acuity, or can you feel your eyeballs in your skull?
Or now you can just hear color and you think that
your senses have expanded.
Yeah.
It's called synesthesia.
But it was you had the CrossFit people and the microdosing people.
And then there's you.
And then there's me.
Horse girls.
Neither with the horse girls. Yeah. All by myself.
Terence said, and maybe your restaurant friends would agree. He said that he thought that people should think of taking mushrooms as having chemical binoculars when hunting, which sounds great. The whole thing, though, is that he misinterpreted and miscommunicated the research that was done to actually study mushrooms and your visual acuity and all of that. So he also believed that at higher doses, mushrooms could result in sexual arousal, lower sexual inhibitions, and increased feelings of social connectedness. And I didn't include this clip, but another one of my favorite quotes, this guy has a very unique voice. But he basically is just saying that people would have more sex when they were on mushrooms. And he, in one of the clips, said, psilocybin causes CNS arousal, aka horniness. I just love that so much.
It needs to be like a drop. AKA horniness.
Yes, it should. I have the exact moments in time, so maybe we'll be able to pull it up and play it later at the end of the
do you
app.
still have our drops from when we first started recording?
Yeah.
Because
Don't play it.
because
Alex!
I don't know what's not because I know what it is because like
Oh
creepy
man.
detail.
oh my god.
Creepy
that's
detail.
a creepy.
Wow, we have
Why
come a
wouldn't
long
there
way.
be?
We really
We're
have.
just
I
not-
remember sitting in here all day on the weekends while Alec would edit, and it would take literally like 12 hours.
I'm so
and
glad.
It was excruciating.
We don't do that anymore.
Me too. We don't edit for shit.
just
we don't
saying,
do. Just
there you
You guys
go.
can have it.
We did our part. You guys do yours. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
just
the agreement.
Fast forward through all the times we're annoying.
But what was this video of this fella called that's talking about being horny?
I'll have to.
You'll find it.
I'll,
Okay.
I'll find it and send it
I'll-
to you. It's one of my sources.
I'll add it to the end of the episode, y'all.
Sweet. Thank you. Terrence also proposed that mushrooms created brain activity that set the tracks for language to happen, which is a critical part of being a human being. But they also probably already had language. And we'll go through, again, a few reasons why this theory is bad. Basically, magic mushrooms were, as Terrence thought, a catalyst for language, philosophy, art, religion, basically everything that gives human that special spice factor.
I mean, I can see it speeding up the process, but I cannot see it like genetically modifying our brains to be bigger.
Yes, I agree.
Like, sure, like maybe people like made art on magic mushrooms and like that. Definitely, and like people have more sex. Okay, sure, like we know that's true.
Yes, but did it have us elevate from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens?
I don't think it played a major role in evolution, but I could see like it having an influence on our culture,
Totally.
like development of society as humans.
Yes. But this
yeah.
theory says that we have consciousness because of magic
No.
mushrooms.
No.
It's a no for me, dog. So, as I stated before, Joe Rogan really wants this theory to be true. I guess he talks about it a lot. I don't listen to his podcast, but I did see.
Can you imagine if we listened to his podcast?
No, I can't. I mean, he's had great success being, starting a podcast early on in the podcast game, whatever. Just, not my cup of tea. But he had this guy, Michael Pollan, an author, and I'm sure a doctor and all this shit of how to change your mind. And Joe Rogan had this guy on the pod and explained to him why, because he had already talked about the stoned ape theory multiple times. And he's like, all right, let me get this like professional in. And he explains to him all these things. And Michael Pollan is like, no, I don't find it persuasive, and stated that he has talked to Terrence McKenna about it, and that Terrence, even after pressing him, Terrence was like, I don't know if I'm like totally persuaded either, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah.
But other sources say that McKenna was very passionate about his theory, so I don't really
Well,
know
I'm sure
what
he's
to think.
passionate about it, but I think it's healthy to, like, anyone with a theory that you can't prove should have a
You should
healthy
be
level of
skeptical.
doubt. Yeah.
For sure. And whether it's true or not, we may not actually ever know. We know. But what we do know is that this theory has really risen and fallen as far as popularity goes, both inside and outside the scientific community. People have started to look at hallucinogens as more than just a way to have a good time. Research has started to explore how hallucinogens can treat and help mental illness and other ailments. McKenna was a lifelong user of hallucinogens and felt all there was to feel within them and really embraced the positive experiences. And I think he just probably was stoned one day talking to his brother, and he's like, this is the spice of life. Like, this is what it's all about. And paired that with what he knew about mushrooms growing in dung and was like, it just makes sense.
It just makes sense. Did he write a book?
He wrote a book. It is called The Food of the Gods, I believe. He's done a lot of stuff. Like, he's not just this nut guy.
Was he interviewed in the Netflix documentary on mushrooms?
I don't think so. He died in 2000.
Oh. So
I
no.
don't think so.
Yeah.
Maybe they time traveled. But all in all, it's a very simple theory, and people really like simple. It's not super hard to understand, and it's hard to prove and it's hard to disprove because it is very general and unspecific. What evidence we do have in support of the theory is that, and this is very loose evidence, if you will, basically every human, every society takes part in mind-altering substances on Earth, whether it be drugs, alcohol, and there's even the argument that like language is a mind-altering activity, just to be able to exchange information this way and debate and things like that. I really liked that idea. It's like, I've never thought about language like that before.
We were just talking about like reading Game of Thrones, like it's little splotches of ink on a piece of paper, and yet it can create this huge emotional narrative in your brain.
Totally. It's like all of these vocalizations that we have are really just noises that over time we've been able to assign meaning to, and we've like made it our own thing.
My riddle for my students today was, what can you see but never hear? And one of my students was like, emotion. And I was like, no. And then he was like, what? And like got upset. I was like, there you go. I'm hearing your emotion.
I'm with him. I don't think I think you can hear reactions to emotions.
But then if you're like, you can't hear emotion, it's like you could like
I think
reason your way that you can, like, if you can hear it at all in any capacity, it's not the answer to the riddle.
Fair enough. I think you can only feel emotions.
Okay.
What was the answer?
The answer, I accepted two answers, light and shadows.
Okay, what was the question again?
What can you see but never hear?
Okay. Fair enough. Can we hear the sun?
They were guessing the sun, and my argument was you can hear the sun if it exploded or if you were right next to it.
That is not fair.
But otherwise, it'd be like, and people were saying like colors, and I was like, okay, I guess that also, I don't know. There's a lot of answers.
Colors
like,
are just light.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like, I did not expect it to go like this.
We're going to get a lot of hate mail about that riddle.
I did not write it. You
but
can take
you
it up
put it
with
out
riddles.com.
Riddles.com. Need to do a night class on riddles. The history of riddles, everyone. The very first riddle. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Here's why it's the egg.
Listen, I know a lot of riddles. I do one every day for the students.
I'm sure you do. I don't know that many riddles. I wish I was better at them.
Yeah,
Kinda
I
makes
suck
me
at
mad
them.
how bad I am at them.
I'm bad at them too. It's okay.
Well, I have a few.
But I get to play God because I know the answer every day.
That feels good.
It does.
That feels really freaking good.
I feel smarter even though I'm not the one who figured it out. I read the answer.
That's like just playing Monopoly, but you're like, no, I don't actually want to play. I just want to be the bank.
Yeah. I love being the bank.
Have the money.
And I like to decide who gets what piece.
Yes. And what denomination the money comes in. That's the right word,
What?
right? Like if I could give you $100 bill or I could give you 5 20s.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be really dramatic about it. Okay, well, let's finish this lesson up. I touched my mouse and now I am off track.
Love when that happens.
Okay, here we are. So back to the research in supporting evidence, and then we'll move on to why it's bad. There has been some interesting research on psychedelic substances and their effect on neuroplasticity. For those who don't know off the top of your heads or at all, neuroplasticity is the flexibility of the connections between our brain cells. So a quick quote from one of my sources, the Neurotransmissions YouTube. Some research indicates that a single dose of psilocybin can enhance the formation of new neuronal connections in the brain. So this would make sense for how psilocybin can treat depression. It's kind of like rewiring your brain, but it's also very rare, few and far between for adult brains to experience neuroplasticity as far as forming new neurons and forming new neurons in general. It does happen, but it's very specific parts of the brain and it doesn't happen often. But that's all the supporting evidence. So let's talk about the oh my God, I'm getting all wound up. Contradictory evidence. McKenna's theory is very flashy and it's fun to think about, but he's never really pointed to any evidence to back up his claims. Firstly, he states that psilocybin improves visual acuity. He got this claim from a study that was done in like the 70s, and he completely misrepresents the research. The paper that was published by a researcher named Fisher was all on visual perception, not visual acuity. And in the paper, Fisher concluded that psilocybin, quote, may not be conducive to the survival of the organism, which is different than what Terrence said. He also said that the sample was thousands of people. The sample size was 16. So it's a big difference. Really.
I don't know the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, but I know the difference between 1,000 and 16.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I would say 6 decimals and under. I've got a good
6 decimals.
Right? Like decimal points that'd be in the hundreds of thousands.
The decimal doesn't move.
Then what's it called then? Not the decimal then,
place
but
value.
The place value. I can understand maybe not even 50 million. Depends on what you're talking about. 1 million and under, I think I've got a good hold on.
Yeah,
that's what I'll settle on. Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously not decimals. Psilocybin can affect our vision, but there's no evidence of it enhancing our vision, even at really low doses, like these people who are microdosing.
Yeah, it makes it worse.
Exactly.
You hallucinate. It's called a hallucinogen.
It is surely hindered by the psilocybin. Like, different is not always good.
No, and like I'm not saying it's bad either. I'm just saying it's not making your vision sharper. You are hallucinating. By definition. That means you're seeing things as they are not.
There isn't really any evidence that psilocybin increases sexual desire. And there was a study exploring psilocybin and the generation of new neural connections in mice. Weird that you brought up mice earlier this episode. It's
Crazy.
like you knew, mind melded. The findings weren't significant, but they did find high doses led to lower numbers of new neurons, and some neurogenesis can happen in specific areas of adult brains, but again, it's very limited. So there are a lot of things that they think could have caused human consciousness. I'll kind of cut this short because this is going kind of long, this lesson is. But a lot of scientists think that it could probably be language that aided and really drove our evolution. It enhanced these close interactions, allowed people to really come together and have communities, and also our babies, human babies, Homo sapiens babies and Homo erectus, they're so needy and master manipulators that they really created this need to have a clan, to have a community, because it does take a village. Compared to other mammals, human babies are much more needy, much more underdeveloped when they are born, and their brains still develop for a much longer time compared to other mammals who their brains are slowed after their development is slowed after they're born. So there are a lot of different ideas. I'm not going to go through all of them, and I didn't write all of them down. Maybe that's a topic for another time. There's no true answer though. Okay, okay, what do I want to cover next? I think we should just move on to animals getting high.
Let's do it.
I think that's the best place to go from here. So that lesson, that theory anyway, this lesson on that theory is unfounded. It does leave us with a lot of questions, but it's fun to think about. There are a ton of cases of animals getting high in the wild. So these are very quick. Cows graze on loco weed, which I love the name of. Cows, sheep, and sometimes horses will seek out a plant called loco weed that acts as a tranquilizer. It just kind of like makes them chill out.
Nice.
Kind of like indica, I think, is the marijuana in the couch. Bighorn sheep in the Canadian Rocky Mountains risk it all for hallucinogenic lichen. That's how you pronounce it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank
It's like
God.
slime. Fungus.
Yes, it's on the rocks. It's like moss, right?
Yeah.
It grows where it's way too harsh for all the other plants to grow. So the sheep have to risk trekking up narrow paths and steep ledges to get to it. But once they do, they scrape off the lichen with their front teeth and sometimes their horns. I know that just like puts shivers down my spine. And they have reports of acting strangely after ingesting the lichen.
Nice.
Wallabies in Australia have ended up making crop circles because they venture into poppy fields, get high as a kite, and just jump around and go in circles, and then they crash and pass out.
That's the opposite effect that it has on humans.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
too?
that is interesting. That makes me think of my horse racing lesson when people were giving heroin to horses, because for animals, it makes them energized.
Yeah. So it got these freaking wallabies pumped up, and they've been known to return to specific fields so that they could get high again. Elephants are known to get drunk. Jaguars eat these leaves called yagi leaves. They eat a ton of leaves just in general to cleanse and clear out their digestive systems, but sometimes these leaves leave the cats high as a kite. It's a very common leaf in the jungle, especially in South America, and it makes the cats act like kittens. Aww. They just are very playful. Catnip. It is exactly like catnip, but for these big, scary hunter cats. Some people think it helps heighten the cat's senses when it's hunting. But then again, I'm like, oh,
no,
sounds like
microdosing.
Stoned Ape Theory. Don't get it twisted. Parrots are known to eat opium sap, cats and their catnip. None of them seem to be creating a brain expanding evolution for any of these animals. Researchers have given chimps drugs like LSD without any significant changes to their consciousness, behavior, or development for their use of tools or language. Our distant relatives did not value mushrooms in the same way we did either. It's not like they were working in a restaurant fucking talking about microdosing with their horse girl friend. So it's just completely different. And there's a lot of questions we still have about how human consciousness came around. But I thought it would be fun to cover and talk about this theory and go on a learny journey about it and explore why it happened and why it's wrong.
That was a learning journey in every sense of the word.
Yeah, we're little learny wormies.
Little magic school bus
wine. That's our magic mushroom. All right. My sources are the Stoned Ape Theory might explain our extraordinary evolution on inverse.com, the animals that love doing drugs on animalcognition.org, thebrain.mcgill.ca history module. Was doing like freaking homework. Wow. The expansion of the hominid brain, the Wikipedia pages for Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna, the Stoned Ape Theory's bad neurotransmissions on YouTube, the Stoned Ape Theory, Pseudoscience or Psychedelic Origin of Modern Man by Kiki D on psychedelicspotlight.com, and BBC's Weird Nature clip of jaguar eating yagi leaves. That's all, folks.
Thank you. That was incredible. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Tell a friend. Check out our Patreon. And as always, we love you. Thank you for listening. And 3, 2, 1. Class dismissed.
Psilocybin causes what's called CNS arousal. Horniness is another way of putting this. Because what CNS
breathy.
arousal is a kind of
Horniness.
restlessness, a kind of where's the action?
That's awesome. We're definitely going to make a drop out of that.
Awesome.